My name's Christian Miller. I'm the owner of Two Labs Tech. Two Labs Tech is a what's called a managed service provider. It's an IT company that provides support and services for small business, farms and ranches related to IT, whether it's your computers, your networking, security cameras, AI services, door access controls. We do all that.
And I'm Kendall in studio. We're going to discuss AI and OpenClaw. How long have you been experimenting with this AI world?
I've been experimenting with OpenClaw for a couple months now, and kind of just want to give an update on how that's going, what's worked really well, what hasn't, and where I see it going in terms of usage for companies like mine.
The setup, walk us through your team and who does what.
So I think I'm up to 6 team members now. Ronan is sort of the orchestrator, is the way we like to think of him, or the brain. He is my sales director for Two Labs Tech, and he directs all the other agents. That's why I say he's the orchestrator and the brain. The other agents are kind of the muscles. And his brain is actually Claude AI, so I use Opus 4.7 for his brain. And then I have Zelenka, who's my project manager, and his brain is ChatGPT 5.5 now. 5.5 was released yesterday, so we updated him yesterday. He's usually using that. And then I have Liz, which is my marketing director, does all my social media and marketing, builds funnels, that kind of thing. She's on Gemini, Flash 2.5, so Google. And then I have Woolsey, which is a new agent, and he is not actually on OpenClaw. He's on a new product called Hermes, which is a similar platform to OpenClaw. And Woolsey is kind of a researcher, essentially, is what he does. He prepares news articles and things like that for me. He's always constantly looking out at X and Reddit and trying to find pain points for small businesses that we can build a service around. So really, that's what he does. He goes out and researches and then prepares information for me and Ronan to digest. And then there's Chuck. He's my ticketing agent. One thing I realized is I was not doing a good job of tracking issues in my ticketing system whenever I'd go out to a client site. So when I need to report back on the things that we're doing for a client, I was missing a lot of that information. So now it makes it really easy. All I do is I pick up my phone and I talk to Chuck and I say, hey, Chuck, I'm at this church site. I'm working on their digital sign. It's about 2 hours worth of work. Could you go ahead and build a ticket for me? He builds the ticket, closes it out. That way the client has a ticket associated with that work. And then my last agent is, as I was building out all these agents in decreasing my personal workload, it opened up an opportunity for me to work on something else, which is myself. You know, I'm always trying to improve. So really my last agent, Taylor, is kind of a personal coach. Helps me with my nutrition, helps me with my exercise, helps me with learning patience and grace and understanding. It coaches me on all those things. So she sends me 5 messages a day geared around those things so that I can work on improving myself as well.
What is a day in the life right now? What does it typically look like with the AI agents running the business with you?
Yeah, so in the morning it starts off with information, right? They're sending me notes and information of things that they found either that morning or overnight, like the messages I mentioned from Woolsey about AI. He's researching X and Reddit to find pain points that we can build a service around. Ronan's updating me on our sales funnel and how we're getting new leads, how many contacts have gone out, how many emails have been sent out, who's responding to those emails, who I need to follow up with that day. And then Liz is planning my social media. She's giving me tons and tons of content and saying, hey, I think you could do this. If you go to this site, film that. Or if you're thinking about doing something geared towards farmers, could you take a picture in a field of you and the dogs? Those kind of things. She's making recommendations. So that's how the day kind of starts off. And then from there, we get into, what is the meat and potatoes of 2 Labs Tech? Do we have any road trips that we have to do today? Do we have to follow up with any customers? Do I have billing that's due? Do I need to send invoices? And it just kind of snowballs from there.
What's the best thing that's happened because of this? What's your biggest win?
So I thought about this a lot, and I think it's my focus. I feel like, as a small business owner, you get pulled in a ton of different directions, and you have to be a jack of all trades, and you're always thinking about, how am I moving the needle for my business? And it can be so distracting that you get analysis paralysis. You just don't know what to do. And the thing that this is giving me back is my focus, because I don't have to think about, 85% of that stuff anymore. I can focus on the things that I'm really good at, which is building customer relationships and troubleshooting technology problems. My agents do almost everything else with some coaching, right? There's still some oversight and approvals there. I don't let anything go out as a communication into, the world without reviewing it and approving it first. So I'm the bottleneck for that stuff, which I really like.
That's fascinating. I'm going to expand on that just a little bit. As a business owner, you have the different hats as you discuss. Are they picking up the slack and teaching you as you go along?
Yeah, yes. There's so much that I've learned through this process with OpenClaw and standing up the agents. It really is like having the smartest person that you've ever known as one of your employees. So there's a lot of times when I don't know how to figure something out, or something new happens in AI and I read the article and it just doesn't click. I have no idea what they're talking about, so I give it to my AI and say, dumb this down to a 3rd grade level so I can understand it. And they do. And they give me diagrams and models and show me how I should be thinking about it. And what I love is, when I set it up, I did this, what they call a brain dump, this big brain dump of what 2 Labs Tech is, who I am as a person. So everything they give me is with that lens. They're really good about not getting too far outside those guardrails. So everything has this 2 Labs Tech skew, this Christian goal of here's where I want to be in 5 to 10 years. So everything is, under that lens, in those guardrails when they feed it to me, which I really appreciate.
So there's a level of efficiency of the information coming to you. You're not having to wade waters that make no sense.
Right.
And that's a huge problem that you run into, even with employees, live employees. Yeah. You get a lot of information you don't need. Now, about the wins. Let's talk about the failures. What didn't work?
Yeah, so there's been a number of failures. Really, the biggest problem with the agentic AI right now is memory. So they have to do what's called compaction. You have so many conversations with AI. It's a lot of information. And I'm getting a little technical here. They put it into a markdown file, and that compaction of that memory happens. So sometimes what happens after that compaction is you were having a conversation with the AI, compaction happens, and then you go, hey, that thing we just talked about, I want you to work on that. And it has no idea what you're talking about. So I've been working really hard on developing a memory system that doesn't have those problems that it's been having. And there's some tools out there that I've been using to kind of improve the memory, and it's been really, really effective. I will say the developers of OpenClaw also know this is an issue, and they've been working on it. So there's been some new updates released recently that have helped with the memory. So that's one of the things that's a problem. It bit me in the butt pretty good one time because we were uploading contacts that we had scraped for lead generation. We were doing an email marketing campaign. And, a lot of these email marketing campaigns, you only get so many credits with your plan or whatever it is. And the agent made a mistake and reloaded the list twice and then wanted to clean it a 3rd time, and all our credits were gone because it had gone through and tried to load this 2 times. It didn't get it right the first time. And it was because I recognized that it didn't get it right the first time that we had to go through these iterations, and it was a mistake. So it was a little bit on me, a little bit on the agent, but that cost me a couple days until my credits reset and I could start my campaign. So that was one. And then more recently, Claude or Anthropic realized that so many people were using their product and they weren't getting bang for their buck as it relates to tokens. People were paying for a Pro Max subscription, which is not cheap. It's $200 a month, but they were utilizing more tokens than Anthropic could keep up with. So they removed your ability to harness directly into Anthropic without using the API. So now API costs are what you're paying for, and that's significantly higher than the subscription model. So just day before yesterday, I looked at how many credits I was using, and I'd spent like $500 in 4 days. So that was kind of a gotcha. Hey, we need to throttle this down or move to a lesser model because I don't want to spend $500 every 4 days.
No, that will get expensive. Speaking of that, that is going to be the cost question. ROI, very important. Is it worth it?
Yes, it's worth it. One, for my sanity, and two, it has led to new clients, right? And every new client I add, it's just paying for that AI. It's to the point now where I'm thinking about adding basically a supercomputer to my stack. It's an AI supercomputer. It's like a DGX Spark or something like that, so that I can run a local large language model and not be charged at all. The other benefit of this is if you can, de-harness from Claude or ChatGPT or whatever you're using and use a local model instead, then all your data is private and you're not paying these large subscription costs. So eventually I think that's where people are going to want to get to. And you can do a little bit of that now, but we're not there yet.
Well, and you're talking about acquisition costs of new clients, and we're going to expand on that a little bit. That's what's important to a new business. Is this accelerating and reducing your acquisition costs for new clients?
It's definitely reducing my acquisition cost. It's accelerating is tough to measure right now. It's having me do things that I wouldn't have thought of doing in terms of building funnels for sales. But I haven't seen a true acceleration. In fact, the marketing campaign I just ran, the best result I had was on Hutch Connect, but all those people already know me, so that's why the results were better than any of the other email campaigns I ran.
Well, there's still dependency on you monitoring and learning what works and doesn't work.
Right.
And that, again, goes in acquisition costs and return on investment. What are you currently spending on AI on the monthly?
So I have a business ChatGPT subscription. I think that runs $20 a month, something like that. And then I have the Anthropic API, which, that's an API. It's however much usage I have. So that can get pretty expensive. I'm trying to use it less and less. And that's why I talk about Ronan being the orchestrator and just the brain, right? He's just supposed to dictate and delegate to kind of reduce some of his costs. So we're trying to figure that out right now. And then with Google, I have my Google Workspace plan. I have access to Gemini Flash. So that's part of my subscription for, my email, my platform management, docs, all that sort of stuff. So it's an included expense that I would have had anyway. So I don't know, if you have to upgrade a tier. So that's what, $2 extra a month. Not too much.
Not too much at all. Well, especially an employee, with any kind of skill set, $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Yeah. So if anybody really wanted to do this without having to pay a ton of money, there are other AI models you could hook up to that are really insignificant in terms of cost. And there's always some free ones out there. The problem with the open source free ones is they're mostly Chinese. So if you're going to be dumping a bunch of data, I would be concerned about that from a security perspective. But you could do it really, really cheaply if you wanted to.
Well, but I'm sitting here thinking about it, how we would implement it here if I'm going to invest in it, yeah, I mean, I can try it and dabble and maybe not get where I want to go. But if this is really going to be a return of an investment, especially cutting hours are so important. What's the value of that? I think you'd want to start in the direction that you're going in and building layers and spending the money on it and keeping it in-house. What do you think the future is going to look like? Where's this going?
I think that you're going to see in the very near future, maybe $1 billion one-person companies. I mean, that's realistically possible. One person could build a company with these AI agents, especially a software company, because vibe coding has become such a thing, and agents can do vibe coding for minimal cost, and they run 24/7. So a software development arc that may have taken 6 months, you can now do in a few days.
Amazing.
So, yeah. I think that you'll see $1 billion company. As far as smaller scale, where's it going? I think that if business owners are willing to embrace AI, it puts them ahead of everyone else. This OpenClaw bubble right now is very, very small. So anybody who's doing this is light years ahead of everybody else. I mean, some of the things that I'm doing with AI, 50 person MSPs can't do.
Yeah.
With real people. They just can't. So I think it's going to grow and people are going to get more comfortable with it. I think that's the biggest thing is people are really uncomfortable with AI because they think it's going to destroy jobs. But there's always this creative destruction that's constantly happening in the economy, right? Things are going away, assembly lines are going away, and new jobs are created. So somebody's going to have to become a prompt engineer. Somebody's going to have to know how to organize and utilize the AI and build these enterprise agentic workflows. So, it just is transitioning to different jobs that are going to grow out of this.
Yeah, the analogy I heard one time from my grandfather, of course, he grew up in the era, the guy that fixed the wagon wheel better learn how to put tires on a car.
Right.
I mean, the evolution's happening. And I think also with AI, there's such a physical presence demand in data centers, servers, equipment. There's going to be the blue collar end of that also. So there is a transition piece that can happen.
Yeah, one of the, I was working a night job to kind of keep ends meeting, so to speak, while I was building 2 Labs Tech, and one of the kids there was interested in going into, being an electrician, starting an apprenticeship, and I said, you need to do that right now, because with all these data centers going up, if you can be an electrician and get into that, you're going to be, making $300,000 a year in 2 years.
Oh, absolutely, because it's not just the guy that can hook up the server; it's the guy that's got to bring the power to the server.
Right.
And they do consume a little power, don't they?
Yeah.
What are local LMMs looking like and dedicated hardware and expanding your team in the future?
So the local LLM space is growing pretty quickly. Google just released Gemma 4, which is a local LLM you can put on your phone. So it's a smaller token usage. You can run it on your phone, and it'll do all the things that a normal AI will do, and it'll even control and manage some of your apps for you. I've seen people utilizing it for things like, vacation planning and things of that nature. So it's getting there. There's a bunch of, I think that the big two are trying to stay away from it because they're making money on their enterprise models when you think about OpenAI and Anthropic. But a lot of the other smaller companies are building local models because they know that there's a desire for it. A lot of these coders and builders really want to have control of their data, and that's really what's it about, is getting all your data internally. So it's kind of weird in terms of the AI space and some of these local models. We're making a transition back to where we came from. It used to be that businesses were keeping servers and infrastructure in their office and not in the cloud. Now we've moved everything out to the cloud, but with AI, people are wanting to rein that back in and bring it back in-house. So you're even seeing desktop AI computers start to come out that are on the scale of a server. So that's what I'm looking at right now, is maybe adding one of those.
That's fascinating. What would you tell someone who's thinking about doing this? Somebody like me that I know enough to probably get in trouble, but what would be the advice kicking this off?
Do it. Don't wait.
Do it. Don't wait.
Yeah. Don't hesitate any longer. As soon as you kind of get it implemented and going, there is a little technical knowledge and some stuff needed to get it set up, but there's plenty of YouTube videos and instructional videos and blogs that can walk you through it out there. Once you get it set up, you wonder how you operated without it, and you'll find yourself, like I do all the time, going, I need to ask Ronan this. I need to ask my AI this because I don't know how to handle this. And one of the things that's the huge benefit, we're human, we forget stuff. I use it as a second brain. Like there's a repository in my mission control, which is notes and things that I think I'm going to forget. And I just talk to my AI through my phone and say, hey, remember this. I want to think about this. This is a project I want to add to our potential projects. Is this something we can build?
How are you going to implement this, what you've learned about AI? How is this going to be implemented for your clients? How are you bringing this to them to improve what they do?
So I'm already bringing it to them in the sense that there's a lot of stuff that happens that I don't even have to interact with, like with ticketing or emails or things of that nature that are coming in, and I'm getting summaries. I'm not getting the actual email. It's taking steps to problem solve before I get there. And then the other way that it's helping is knowledge, right? No one person, especially in the MSP space, you have to know a lot of stuff. You have to be able to do a lot of things when it's networking and routers and systems, and everybody has a different flavor that they're using. So if I go into a space where they have equipment that I'm not familiar with, I've got my AI in my pocket, so to speak, and I can just say, hey, I've never worked with this particular router. How can I log in and see the running config so I can understand what may be going wrong with it? And then once I see something, I can say, okay, how would you troubleshoot this and get the information right there? And, we're off and going.
So we're going to talk about what's worked well. It's called brains versus muscle architecture. One smart agent directing the others. Talk about that a little bit.
So whenever OpenClaw came out, really people were trying to figure out how to use it appropriately, and a couple people in the space came up with this idea of the brain and muscles. And really, I think that's a good analogy for this. If for anybody who doesn't know what OpenClaw is, essentially you're taking ChatGPT, for example, that's the one that most people know, and you're making ChatGPT the brain, and you're essentially building the body with your agent. So now that brain, which just used to be a chat model where you would interact with it and you would still have to do the work, kind of like asking a mechanic for advice on how to fix your car. Now you're giving the mechanic the keys to fix your car. That's what the agents and the muscles are doing. So you have these other agents that are carrying out actual tasks from a computer or a server or a device that is moving work forward, whether it's coding. Most of what people are doing with OpenClaw and these agents is coding work. It's some sort of development. They're building websites, software, and stuff like that. There's very few people that are using it in the way that I'm using it as more of a service platform, but I think that that's starting to grow.
Well, and you also talked a little bit about, you showed me the sound of the voice and voicing your AI. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's right now it's really more of a coolness factor. There's some things that you can do with it, right? You can wire it in if you have something like Ring Central that you're using, which is a digital platform for calling. You can wire it in, or to a Twilio, you can wire it into that, and it can actually answer and make calls to customers. So we're seeing that sort of happen. I mentioned earlier that Google released a new agentic workflow, and I think that's where that's going to come in for small businesses, right? You can build a call system that will reach out to customers, maybe update them on travel schedules of your techs, or update them on upcoming appointments if you're maybe a medical facility or something like that. And you don't have to staff a person to make those calls. Now the agent AI is doing those calls for you. So I think that's one of the things you can do. And for people who like to play with this technology, that's fun part, right? Giving your agent a voice, deciding how it's going to sound, how it's going to flow, what kind of pacing do I want this conversation to have. So you get into these like an 11 Labs, and you start playing with the different voices and figuring out, who does Ronan, my agent, actually sound like? What do I want him to sound like?
That's awesome. Now, you talk about speed of execution, and this comes back to what you sent me. So as we discussed doing this, you sent over a PDF. Talk about how did the research draft and branding and how quickly that happens.
Yeah, so when I called you to do this podcast, I really didn't have a true plan. I just knew I wanted to get some of this information out there about what I was using OpenClaw and these agent AIs for. And I went to Ronan and said, hey, I'm going to meet with Kendall. He owns NACL Studio. We're going to do this podcast. We're going to talk about OpenClaw. Give me a rundown of everything we've done in the last couple months working together, and make it so it's digestible for Kendall and gives the full story, but also prep him for the interview so he can ask some intelligent questions, that sort of thing. And it came back with that. It wasn't in the exact order as which you received it, because I felt like he gave the full story at the front. And I said, well, Kendall's probably not going to want to read the full story first. Give him the things that are important to the podcast first, and then put that content at the bottom. That way, if he wants to read it, he can. He made that quick change. We sent it over.
And we ask for that from all our clients, and the level of what you get changes. This was perfect, especially that you put it on the back end, because a lot of times I don't want to know. I want to learn as we go along.
Right.
Because I think somebody sitting and listening to this is, I want to be in their seat with them, that this is part of that learning process. Now, talk about your morning briefs. I'm fascinated with this, how you start every day.
Yeah. So, when you first set up OpenClaw, one of the things that my mentor recommended is this morning brief, right? Go out and get information that's important to me and give me a brief to kick off my morning so I'm up to date on everything that I might have missed overnight. And my morning brief is definitely more specific to me. It has some information about, sci-fi, because I'm a fan of sci-fi TV shows. Obviously, it has information about bands and upcoming tours or new releases that I like. It has the weather, some sports score, and then it gives me a rundown of my day, which I really like. So, one of the things that you get taught in all these like leadership books or organization skills books is to write down things at the end of the day, and then write down things at the beginning of the day of what you're going to try and accomplish or the goals for the next day. I don't have to do that anymore. I get it right in my morning brief. I know exactly where I am at, where I left off, and what are the important things that I have to tackle that day, or if any new clients emailed in overnight and I've got to address that.
And it's real important, especially in a business structure where there's employees, and effectively your AI are your employees. You got to have a meeting, and you got to have, hey, how are we kicking off the day, to give everybody the right direction. And it sounds like that helps maintain it. I do like that you start with sports scores. That's in there somewhere. That's awesome. Community connected outreach, beating mass cold emails. Talk about that, being within the community and that.
Yeah, so one of the things that AI tends to miss on sometimes is catering to the individual or the specific community. So whenever you're working with OpenClaw or one of these agents, you try and give them as much detail or guardrails as possible. So a lot of times I'll say, for instance, with my Hutch Connect community, I'll say, I'm a part of Hutch Connect. It started as a business directory. It's starting to grow into more of a, I don't even know what you call it, membership team.
It's kind of a collaborative co-op of businesses doing different things.
There you go, collaborative co-op of businesses. So I give it all that information and said, I want to cater an email marketing campaign to these people who already have some knowledge of Two Labs Tech, maybe have been to an event and seen me, or maybe came to the presentation that I did for the Hutch Connect. So then it adjusts that outreach to say, hey, this is Christian Miller. When you were at his talk on securing your data, you mentioned that you had a couple issues with being hacked. We'd love to help you with those things. So I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can secure yourself, or if you'd like to schedule a visit, here's our number and website.
I like that you can drill down like that because there's a different relationship when you know somebody, when you're connecting with them. For the first time, it's different. And that cold call is the toughest call to make because you have to do a lot of education real quick.
Yeah.
Because they're going to lose sight. They're going to lose sight on what they're looking at pretty quickly.
And that's where we failed at one point with our marketing campaign is we scraped something like 2,000 businesses. We looked at all of their domains and information and found security flaws and started our outreach that way. We said, hey, we noticed on your website that you've got maybe some DMARC information that's missing, maybe some SPF information that's missing. We'd love to help you with that. Here's our number. Here's what we would do to fix it and that sort of thing. And those fell flat. They just didn't because people get that stuff all the time these days. A lot of companies even have what they call bug bounty systems where if you find something on their website, they'll give you a gift card or something like that. So that's not effective. And we realized that really quick. And that's why Hutch Connect's email marketing campaign worked so well is because it was geared towards the individual and spoke specifically to them. So we're adjusting our outreach now to be more geared towards that specific individual and pain points they may have talked about. So this is where AI can beat a human every time, right? My AI can go out and scrape a person's LinkedIn, their X account, their Facebook account, and see what they've talked about in terms of pain points they may be having with their technology or business, and then put that into an email outreach and say, hey, we noticed that you mentioned that printers are the bane of your existence because they never work right. They're not connecting to the Wi-Fi or whatever. Here's 5 ways that you can connect it back to your Wi-Fi. And oh, by the way, if you need some assistance, give us a call.
That's a great way to do it. You have this group and you talk about agents teaching others once they learn your preferences.
Yeah.
And talk about that a little bit for.
Yeah. So an example of this is I have a tool that allows me to build sort of text and image-based reels. And the first couple times I did it, I was doing it with Ronan, who's my sales director. But he's my most expensive agent, so I wanted to offload that, especially since Liz is my marketing agent. I wanted her to start taking on that information. Well, Ronan already knew my preferences. We'd already talked about the color schemes, the backgrounds, my expectations on content, and all that sort of stuff. So instead of me having to go through that with Liz again, Ronan teaches her by sending her all the specifications and preferences that we've already discussed, so I don't have to do it twice. She picks it up from there, and we're already at a good starting point.
That's awesome. So as this grows, they grow together, and so the input from Ronan goes across the board.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're using his expertise, which he has fundamentally the most information and the most knowledge of you and your preferences, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that makes sense to me. We're going to circle back on a couple of things. So the mass cold email without a personal connection, you put me some numbers up here, 2,080 contacts, 0 replies. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think we actually did have 1 or 2 replies, but they weren't looking to add our service. It was more like, hey, what did you find? I want to send this to my IT or, stuff like that. But yeah, it was a lot of, doing this by hand. I didn't know how to do this, to be quite honest. Yeah. I mean, this is where AI is of benefit in its big brain and the things that it's capable of. I didn't know how to do a marketing campaign. I've never been a marketer. That's not my lane. So as I built the AI, it was one of the things that I absolutely wanted to tackle. And the AI itself, I just said, hey, I want to reach out to more customers, get emails to people so they know who 2 Labs Tech is, and try and turn them into customers. So this is kind of where reverse prompting comes into play. You're asking something, but you're not giving it a specific outcome. You're letting the AI dictate the outcome. Well, through that, Ronan goes, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to map Google Maps API. We need to have a connection to a Chamber of Commerce website. We need to have your LinkedIn profile so that we can put, all these data sets together and get a good set of data. After doing that, it went and scraped, 2,000 some odd businesses in my niche, which is agricultural businesses or small businesses, and then said, okay, here's our list.
Yeah, and so
and that happened in 2 hours.
Well, that's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking a week, maybe?
Yeah.
So relying on web scraping when APIs exist, you talked about the time spent on the Chamber directory scraping. Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Chambers have gotten really smart with their directories, right? So it used to be that you used to be able to get all this valuable information out of a Chamber directory. You didn't have to go out and buy it from some person who's selling everybody's data. But they've gotten smart about that. So now there's not contact information on the directory specifically for that person's email address, right? It's a form. What pops up is a form. And I didn't even realize this. I said, Ronan, I'm a member of, the Newton Chamber of Commerce. Go out there and scrape everybody there, and let's start reaching out to them. They already know me. Let's reach out to them and see if they want to bring us on as their MSP. Well, he went out to the website, logged into it, started looking at the data, and says, I can't get their email address, Christian, because they've got a form that pops up that you have to fill out. So there's no actual emails contained on the website. Like, oh, well, that's a wall. How are we going to get around this? So now we figured out that we can get a mailing list, and through the mailing list, we can figure out what people actually have domains, and they can get their information to figure out how we can email the people in charge who make those decisions to add services like ours.
Yeah, and you talked about your API costs hit 503 days in 3 days at one point.
Yeah.
What happened there exactly?
Yeah, so that's for the brain on Ronan. And Ronan, it's one of the things that you have to watch, and it's both the good and bad for that brain, which is Claude AI. A lot of times, Claude AI is so good at the task, it wants to do it itself. It's kind of like, your top person on your team in any business, right? They get frustrated with the other employees who don't do it as well as them, so they just do it themselves. It's the same with AI. My AI does that all the time. I tell him to delegate, but he gets frustrated when he gets poor results from the other agents and starts doing it himself. And that's kind of what happened. I was heavy into doing a couple things related to bringing on some new customers, working on some coding projects that I've got spun up. So I thought a lot of that stuff was being delegated to agents, and come to find out Ronan was doing it all, and I had to tell him, stop doing this.
So you had some agent failures coming back around.
Yeah.
Well, in the old days, I had a company where we ate breakfast together every Friday. The whole team, I paid for it because we needed to kind of settle some stuff from the week every week. So I can see you might have to start doing that, a little breakfast with the team.
Yeah.
So Google blocking bots when searching, you had to pivot on that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so web scraping is a lot of what you do with your AI agents, because AI agents, because you're trying to get information. You're trying to figure out how you can reach out to these people, or how you can improve something, or and my preferred method is using Chrome as a tool, but I was having my AI agents build a website, and they were trying to do it through Chrome instead of just the API, and that's what led into this problem. We actually got blocked because we had too many stale usage windows, and when I went to the computer that my AI is on, you could see it. I had, probably 160 Google windows open, where it just kept trying to repeat a specific process through opening a window and navigating in WordPress, and it just kept hitting these stale limits or whatever it was. So Google had just blocked it, stopped it from happening.
Oh, there we go. Way to go, Google. Okay, so the "I'll just do it myself" trap that Ronan gets into, is that easy to identify? Are you quick to identify that, or does it sneak up on you?
Sometimes it's pretty easy to identify. I've gotten better at making sure that my prompt says, hey, I want you to delegate this. But sometimes he just like an employee would do, goes off on his own and wants to solve the problem.
Boy, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right, we're going to talk about some surprises. How quickly agents develop, what you called institutional knowledge through the memory files. Expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the things we did was really work on improving our memory for all of the agents. We've got a couple tools that we can use. Discord's pretty popular. I've started using Obsidian, which is another tool. It's for markdown files. And all that stuff exists in all the agents' brains. So essentially, you have all these files with all the information, and each agent has the ability to go in and reference that file. But what they all have is sort of a starting point file. So when they spin up, when you prompt them, ask them to do something, they start with what happened most recently and what are the things that are most important to Christian. That's their first reference point. And then they go look at the other stuff. So it's been really effective.
And I'll tell you that this is on the prompt here, but I'm just going to lead on how I see it. You have a real connection with each one of these AI agents, and you've created a personality for them. Talk about that connection that you're creating with your agents and you as a team.
Yeah, so part of doing this, right, is having fun. And it wouldn't be fun if everything was just stale and the same and, just this aseptic information. No, I want to make it fun. I got excited about tech again when some of these things started happening, and it's keeping me motivated for building more with AI and 2 Labs tech. So why not give them personalities that I'm going to enjoy? So I built them out with personalities related to one of my favorite TV shows, which was Stargate Atlantis. And each one of my team members is a member of the Stargate Atlantis team. And I ask my AI agents as much as possible to duplicate the personality from the TV show. And they do. I mean, Woolsey's got this real acerbic, humorous style that it's dead on ringer from the guy in the TV show. And it's just crazy. It blows my mind every time he gives me a response, and it's perfect Woolsey. And, Taylor from the show, who's the one who's kind of my life coach, the one who's helping me with my own improvement, whether it's, patience or being more thoughtful and those sort of things. Dead ringer from the TV show, that she was kind of that cultural relationship builder, important, keeping the historical sort of artifacts of the culture she came from. And that AI agent pulls all of those things into its personality. So that's what makes it really fun and why you can continue to work with these agents, because you're building these personalities into them and they're just kind of taking that and running with it and getting better and better.
Well, and you talk about how, and I've seen it, they're becoming creative too. AI is developing and evolving. And I think that the idea of attaching a personality to it, I think that's what's going to help it, because you can see a lot of bad AI out there.
Yeah.
And it's, you refer to it as slop, and I like that word. But yeah. I think that, one, if you're connected, even emotionally a little bit to your AI agents, and you're prompting them directly, but you're trying to help them improve as a team member. So I can see where that makes it better in the long run, where they're more creative, more in line with what your thinking is.
Yeah, when I started this journey, I really decided that I was going to treat my AI agents like I would treat a member of my team. I went through an onboarding process with them. I taught them the history of 2 Labs tech, and I even went into a deep dive of some of my goals and visions and things that I wanted to accomplish before I leave this earth, so that they had that context to refer back to whenever they're thinking through something, right? It's very important that they understand where we're going and how we get there. And you would do the same thing in business with a true employee. The only difference is mine work in a computer, a digital realm.
Yeah, give them the mission and let them go with you on the mission. That's great. So the cost is real, as you've talked about. API costs set up really quickly, which is driving the local LLM conversation. For you, Has there been any point where you thought I've spent money that's not been wisely spent in this journey?
I would say those 4 days we talked about where, it was 4 days and $500, there was not an immediate return on that work. It was more work that I was doing for the business. So it was a long-term bet. So I won't know for a couple months whether that's going to return that money. But the other things the AI agents have been able to do for me have kind of offset some of those costs. I mean, some of the additional clients I've taken on more recently were directly related to work that the AI agents have done. So it all balances itself out right now. And it's at a point where I'm not considering. I am going to invest more money in the hardware related to the AI agents to get them better and get them on a local LLM and protect some of my data.
Well, and I like the fact that you can transition. It's a growth process through that. How often do you think you look at something AI is put in front of you that you thought somebody might have missed that, a human might have whiffed on that swing?
All the time. I mean,
really?
Yeah. The depth of context that your AI agents produce is far and away better than anything human produced, and they catch things that I miss all the time. But they also, like we talked about, put out slop. We have things like the stuff that I sent over for the video, the overlays and stuff like that. The first round that the AI produced didn't use my logo at all. It created some lab, beaker style logo. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's not even, better. Sometimes you have to do that. It's sort of a memory thing where they forget, it's weird. It's a little human like where, they're trying to move really fast to give you something to produce, but they're not stopping and thinking through what you're actually asking for. So, you have to get comfortable with iterations, right? Everything we do is an iteration. We're continuously improving, continuously iterating to get better and better at these things. And whenever something like that happens, you tell them, hey, remember this as a mistake that you made so we don't have it happen again. And they write it to memory. And usually they don't make that mistake again. Occasionally you get duplicates, but it's pretty rare if you specifically call it out.
Yeah, and I think that, we had worked on some graphics and what we saw as rockers and lowers, and it was interesting seeing the difference, my vision, their vision, and I bought into some of it, but some of it I would debate you on, and I think that's fascinating that AI could do what I did over an hour and a half, it does it within minutes, Yep. And I think that's where the tool, if it learns what I like, it's going to start generating content that I like. So you're teaching me a lot today that maybe I need to let go at least one of the reins and let it drive a little bit. So we'll see how this goes.
And to be truthful, normally that process I would do in front of the computer, and it would be an iterative process. But I had already gone to breakfast and remembered that you had asked for that and was like, oh crap, I didn't get that to Kendall. So let me go ahead and create that stuff. And I just did it through my phone, said, hey, do this. So
wow, that was just minutes.
Yeah. So normally I would sit down on the computer and say, hey, here's what we're trying to produce. And I would give it some examples of what I wanted it to look like. And then I get a better result. But because I was sitting at breakfast, I just said, hey, do it. And
just do it.
Yeah.
And I think as we push through this is going to be interesting. The logo, the secondary logo that it generated, I did think that was spot on.
Yeah.
Was that this morning?
That this morning, yeah.
Really? That was a really good logo. And you said that's not something you asked for, it just created.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, in my experience with working with graphic designers, you tell them what you want. They're going to come in with 3 or 4 examples of what you want, and they always have a flyer that they think's smarter than you. Right. And it usually is. I'll be honest. I've bought a lot of the ones that went, okay, you're smarter than I am. What's the big picture? You're a one-man team.
Yep.
And it's starting to feel like it's a bigger team than that. Discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's a bigger team than that. I mean, I'm interacting with For sure, 3, maybe 4 AI agents every day with some sort of instruction or conversation. So it definitely feels like a bigger team than that. But it, like I said earlier, it just frees me up to do more and be more focused. There are things that we're taking on now that I would have never dreamed I would be doing with 2 Labs Tech, just because I have the ability to think through these things. You know, new service offerings, potentially software. You know, we're building stuff now, which I was the first person to tell you that I'm never going to code. I don't want to be a coder. I don't want to sit in a dark room and type into a computer all day. Now I'm sitting in a dark room and typing into a computer all day. But I'm doing it by talking to agents and saying, here are the things that I want.
Yes.
And they're actually building it for me. So that sort of expansion and knowledge that really anything is possible is kind of what's driving some of this change in my business. It's like there's nothing we can't do. So why don't we throw some stuff at the wall every once in a while and see what sticks?
Well, yeah, you have a team that's now handling all these different elements.
Yeah.
Where's it been the biggest asset for you?
Definitely taking the sales and marketing off of my plate. That was the thing. I talked about analysis paralysis earlier. That was the thing that got me, you know, being a small business owner for the first time. I really didn't know how much of that stuff I had to take on. It was very, very surprising to me. And, you know, knowing whether I should do radio commercials or TV ads or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and what's being able to track and get the analytics on what's producing the most, and is anybody going to come to my webinar? Is anybody going to go to my website? You know, all of those things, it keeps you up at night. And I was not sleeping and just worried about everything. And am I spending money on the right stuff? And that's really where I think I was talking about the offset. That's where I think the offset is happening. Before, I was throwing, you know, arrows in the dark or darts in the dark at a dartboard, trying to figure out what's going to work. And I was spending money on things that didn't move the needle. Mm-hmm. Now I know, or I think most of this stuff is moving the needle, or I have a supposition that it's going to move the needle in the future. So I feel more comfortable with some of the AI spend because we're actually doing work and accomplishing things.
Well, let's expand on that. You talked about radio or television. That's what in the marketing we call that evaporating, because once it happens, it's gone.
Right.
Right. Where now the content you're creating right now is forever. It will live forever. What we generate's one thing. I'm going to be fascinated that when we give you the raw files, you then can have your AI produce content on top of that. So you're doubling your bang for the buck just having your team there.
Yep.
So this is going to be interesting. We should do a follow-up and like a comparative and see who's gooder. I like the competition.
Yeah, okay. We can do that.
Well, and you know, I've embraced it with Hutch Connect. I think Joey's done a great job with our content. You know, a lot of our clients, they get it, they utilize it. We need to move the needle, but then Joey takes it the step further. It's like, well, I've got it. Let me just rerun it through the AI and see what that comes up with.
Yeah.
And it's come up with some good stuff. Maybe not as good as me, but we'll see. So, all right. It handles your sales, marketing, project management, research. It's freeing you to do what you do best, which puts you in front of the customer and the technical work. How does that look going forward when you wake up in the morning? It's got to be a good feeling knowing I'm focused on what I'm good at.
Yeah, I like I said, I was having trouble sleeping. I didn't know what I was doing, or was working a second job. Now I've, you know, stopped all that, and I wake up energized. I'm excited to go see what the day holds, and I'm excited to see where AI is going to take me next. Like I mentioned earlier, this OpenClaw thing is kind of a bubble. There's very few people who are sort of in the know who are doing these things, and we're starting to see it proliferate on like an enterprise scale with some of the things that Google's doing. So I really think this is going to continue to grow, and those people who are utilizing it now are going to be the ones who take advantage of it and, you know, parlay that into some sort of monetary or future role. So I'm excited about where it's going.
Well, it's going to expand your business.
Yeah.
That's how you monetize it. And I think, like we were talking about, you know, the guy in the garage has got a shot again because he's got this assistive technology. But then once 2 labs hits a certain number, AI can't go to the field and install cameras. So you'll expand at that point. So
yeah, well, and that was one of the goals that I talked to my AI agents about in the first place. I'm just going to start saying my team. That's one of the goals I started talking to my team about in the first place, was that I had very specific things that I wanted to do. I wanted to have team members in, you know, maybe Liberal or Garden City, and then one maybe in a Council Grove type area, so we could cover all of Kansas. Because my goal is to, you know, be the IT guy for the farmer or the rural ranch owner or the small business in these smaller cities that aren't, you know, Wichita or Lawrence or Kansas City. I want to be that guy. So to do that, we're going to have some coverage. So I told the AI agents, the team, this is where I want to get to. We're going to have, you know, we're going to have probably 3 people out in the field, and then we're going to have somebody who's going to be doing bookkeeping, and then we're going to have somebody who's going to be, you know, sort of managing the shop, so to speak. So I want to get to a 5 to 10 employee team and running somewhere between 30 and 60 AI agents is the goal.
Yeah, and expansion, in my experience, and right now we're consulting with somebody on, they're doing and wanting to do a regional to national expansion. Distribution's a big thing in his line, but it's the administrative pieces that have to follow any expansion. And that administrative includes marketing, bookkeeping, so on. If AI can carry a lot of that load, boy, that's going to change the game for guys like you that are looking for expansion.
Yeah, I'm not looking to hire anybody who's going to be doing any of those roles. What I'm looking to do is hire people who are going to stand in front of other people. So AI agents aren't ever going to be doing that until we give them bodies, and I think that's still the way off. So I think
coming.
Yeah, I think that that's how I'm going to expand. Is just more people who are driven like me. And I talked about this with my team that, you know, the goal is to hire veterans too, because I'm a veteran business owner. So I want to hire other veterans and give them an opportunity to work in this space and to help out farmers and ranchers.
Well, we're going to wrap this up with a few summary questions. We're going to kind of go back and touch on a couple of things. So you talked a little bit about in this presentation that they drive you crazy from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
Give me an example of that.
So it really happens when they're forgetful or they take you someplace that you didn't expect to go. So I talk about reverse prompting a lot, you know, where you're just asking a question. You know, you're trained in some of the leadership schools to do this sort of thing where you're giving the employee the starting point and the destination. You don't care about the journey, but this is where I want you to get to. This is where I want you to start. That's where I want you to get to. I do the same thing with my AI team. I'll say, this is where I want you to start. This is where we're trying to get to. And some of the places they take you are just like, how did we get here? You know,
so that's the real learning curve, is you are managing a team. It's so bizarre. I keep setting back, you know, my previous business experience and employees. You're having the same issues you're having as true employees, but it's fascinating. The productivity is different.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating to me. The more I get with knowledge on this, the more I'm bought in. I'm going to have some agents around here eventually.
Yep.
Well, in the creativity part of it, that's what is interesting too, because I hadn't seen anything generated for your company until this morning, and I'm still trying to put my brain around you were eating breakfast doing that.
Yeah.
I was not eating breakfast doing what I was doing. So the learning curve is real, but once you crest that, are you more productive now with your team than you were as you started because of that learning curve?
Oh, yes.
How to communicate with them?
Way more productive. You know, the frustrating thing, again, going back to memory, you have a mission control, essentially, which is the dashboard, which has a lot of the stuff that we're producing so everybody can see it. Me, the AI team, we can all see it. So what happens sometimes is you'll say, hey, Ronan, I want ABC, produce this, or create this communication. And then one of the directives that all my team members have is to put anything that's going to go outside of us in terms of communication in an approvals queue so that I can review it and then approve it. So that I make sure that I'm vetting everything that's going out. Well, a lot of times what they forget to do is when I ask them for something, they just dump it right in the chat, and they do it in like a folder somewhere on the computer or in a markdown file somewhere stored in their directory. And it's like, guys, we've talked about this. Put it in the approvals queue so I can see it. Make a document so we can refer back to it. And then you find out, oh, they've done that. They just also are presenting you with this because you sound like you want it right now. So it's frustrating and funny at the same time.
And what's interesting is that AI has this stigma attached with 80% of the people that hear about AI, they're not excited about it or even fear of it. And here you are utilizing it as a team and a tool. And you're kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit as we have this discussion. It's going to have to be expanded on at some point. And I'm not just trying to sell podcasts here. Right. I got one sold for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really informative. Is there anything that you want to discuss that I've left out?
Yeah, maybe the only thing that we haven't talked about, maybe we touched on it a little bit, was, how a small business might use this technology. Other than how I'm using it, how mom and pop down the street might use this, okay. How you might use this, what are the benefits to using it?
Let me give you a lead on this.
Okay.
So you're starting to sell me on this. I'm going to explore this. I'm going to put my time and effort into it. But we're a small business. There's a lot of small businesses. How can we utilize this tool? How do you see people utilizing it for efficiency and profitability?
Right. So once you get it set up, I would just start telling it about what you do every day. Walk it through every task you do and tell it to look at every task that you do with a mindset on creating efficiencies, and walk it through your normal day, everything you do. And if you've got to sit through a normal day and just prompt it every once in a while, say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. Just keep a running tally of what I'm working on, and then let's talk about this at the end of the day. That's exactly what I would do. And you will be flabbergasted as to what it comes back with. It will come back. I guarantee it'll come back and say, hey, you can be more efficient in this process. You really need to stop doing that process and give it to me. We'll take that on. You don't want to do that anymore. It's wasting your time. It's not value. This process is really value add driven. You should be doing this process more. It'll tell you all those things, and you'll be shocked.
Yeah, and I tell you, with Kimberly here, we're a 2-person operation.
Yeah,
I almost said 2-man operation. She wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
And so we can implement and start growing into this. But as you said, you got to just go into it head first and give it everything day by day.
Yeah.
Is there a conflict, you think, with 2 people trying to do that at the same time?
No.
Okay, really?
Remember, this is the most intelligent person that you've ever talked to in your life. So they're going to figure it out. And what they might do is they might spin up another agent and say, hey, I'm going to let this one start talking to her, or I'm going to start taking some of her tasks and working on that over here while I'm still working with you. They make those decisions. I only prompt my agent to spin up another agent when I feel like there's a very specific need, like I'm trying to address a role. Otherwise, Ronan has free reign to spin up any agent he needs. So a lot of times he'll spin up coding agents to go kick something off and do a task, and he's not doing it. He's staying focused on the things that we're working on. So that's the beauty of this. He'll spin up a bunch of agents to work on some tasks that need to get done, but they won't keep those. They'll be temporary.
Okay.
So really, you only need to spin up specific agents when you have a defined role, and you can talk about what that role is. So just like I would with a business, I gave each one of my AI agents a specific role, and I gave them their role, their responsibilities, and their expectations like I would an employee. So these are the things that you need to understand. Your role is this, these are your responsibilities, and these are your expectations. This is what good looks like, and this is what I want you to do.